Hello, I'm Jackie Bradham from the St. Croix County Historical Society, and today we're here for Western Wisconsin Journal, and we're speaking to author Tina Boucher, and she has recently published the book Lost Farms in the St. Croix Valley. And if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm Kristina Boucher, and I just came out with the Lost Farms of the St. Croix Valley. It's my first publication, and it focuses all on local St. Croix River Valley farming and agriculture. So yeah, and it just came out here May 8th, so it's still a pretty new book.
Yep. And I got my copy and read it, so found it very interesting. I love historic photos, so in that respect, I just love the book. It had wonderful photos in it. So can you tell us a little bit of a background about you and your family?
Sure. My aunt and uncle own a dairy farm in East Farmington, Wisconsin, and it has been in our family for many, many generations. And I grew up on and around the farm my entire life. My dad grew up on the farm, but I spent a lot of my childhood years running around the barn, probably causing more trouble than any help. But yes, yeah, we would be running around the cows and through the pastures and all of that growing up. And so I have a lot of really fond memories of farming, and it's kind of become a family gathering place,
as most farms are.
Yeah, right, yeah. So agriculture has been a strong influence for me, my entire life, and so it kind of just piqued an interest in writing about this topic in general.
Okay. So when did you first start thinking about writing a book? I mean, that's a big undertaking. When did that spark hit?
Well, I've always wanted to write since I was a little girl. I used to write my mom little stories. She's kept all of them in a big Tupperware container, and yeah, I always loved to write, and I always wanted to be a writer. But this book actually kind of happened by accident. I didn't set out to write a book. I just set out to, initially I loved taking pictures of the old barns, and I thought they were kind of, beautiful and it's nostalgic,
Yep.
And then so I just was driving around these backcountry roads in Wisconsin and Minnesota and taking pictures of the old beautiful barns. And then I just started wondering why they were being abandoned or why they were falling apart or what happened to the families. And so I just started researching independently and seeing, why, what happened to these people. And so I started writing and collecting more photographs, and, eventually it blossomed into an actual publication.
Okay. So, who was the barns themselves were inspiration, but of people who kind of inspired the book?
Well, definitely my aunt and uncle. My uncle was such a tremendous help. I could send him a picture of anything and be like, "Uncle Mike, what is this?" A picture from like the late 1800s, and he would know what it was and how it ran and
all that old farm equipment.
All the old farm equipment. He could tell you, just anything about the picture. He's just a walking agricultural dictionary. He also he knows everything about our family genealogy. He was the first person that I interviewed, and I don't know, he just...
Is he still on the farm?
Yes, yep, he still farms.
In a working farm?
Yes, yep, still a working dairy farm.
And where is that located?
That's right in East Farmington, Village View Dairy Farm.
Okay.
So, yeah, actually, and he was, like I said, he was my first interview, and so, he told me that I would have to, I can interview him, but he's got to
make you bail him. Did he make you bail for your interview? Been there, done that.
Actually, I just had to follow him around while he milked, which was fine. But yeah, just following him around
Watch your
the
step
barn.
though in the barn, right?
Right. Yeah, my notebook actually got cow manure on it, and so that's that's how all the interviews started, was with that. But
The hazards of working on a farm.
right.
My grandma always said you had to eat your bushel full of dirt before you died anyway.
Right.
I think those farm kids, we get plenty of it. So.
Oh yeah.
So what about the process of writing the book? I mean, I know you went out and your uncle was the first you interviewed, but who are some of the other people you interviewed, and what was their reaction to you coming and interviewing them?
Right. Yeah. I interviewed some of the Germains out of Osceola and some Hudson residents. I also drove around with my grandma, and we stopped at random farms and knocked on doors and asked if they would be interested.
Did you get mixed reactions from that?
Yeah, some people were kind of surprised that I would be stopping by on, but a lot of people were really welcoming. I think that's just kind of naturally a farmer. I mean, it's a very strong community. They're always willing to help. I just think that's the backbone of a farmer in the first place. So when you stop and say, especially when I'm saying I want to write a book about you, and all the hard work you do, I think a lot of people were interested in helping.
That's neat.
And so that's kind of how I started collecting some of the pictures and gathering some information, is just knocking on doors.
Door to door, doing it the hard way. Yes. So I believe one of the people you interviewed was Donna Mae Syme.
Yes.
She's a treasure, isn't she?
Yes.
I've worked with her for the Historical Society, and she often comes to the 8th grade tour and talks about the history, her family settling, and the history of farming. So. What was your impression of her?
Oh, she was great. I think we sat down for a couple of hours and just kind of tried to do just a casual conversation of what it was like to be on a farm. What was the work like? What did you have to do? How was it raising your kids on a farm? Why did they end up tearing down their barn? What were some of the things that led up to that? And yeah, it was a really fun experience interviewing her. But like everyone I interviewed, it was great just to sit back and listen to them tell their stories. And that was a fun experience.
Yep. Let me see. When you're out there doing either doing your research or interviewing, was there something in particular that really surprised you, that you had preconceived ideas about, or things were different than what you thought?
I guess with my family being in that agricultural background, there were some things that I kind of knew many things going into it about how farming has changed and what the struggles were. But actually, now that you talked about Donna Syme, she was telling me about some of the technological changes in agriculture and how that affected day-to-day life. And she was just telling me about, the machines are great, they were wonderful, until you experience a Wisconsin winter and then everything freezes. And so it's, so you have the the manure grate going through the barn, and that froze, and you're still shoveling manure out of the grate anyway. And it's all those struggles, those little things that you don't think about, and so I guess that kind of stuff, it did surprise me, because you want to think, oh well, technology is good, it's good, but
technology is wonderful when it's working.
Right. Yeah.
Not so much when it lets you down. Yeah. So, as far as publishing a book, something I've never really worked on, what were some of the challenges to writing a book, or to how long it takes? And
well, I definitely underestimated the amount of work that goes into it. It was like having another full-time job. And, it's kind of a labor of love too, and I guess, how it all starts with finding a publishing company that's even interested in the content. And so even that is a chore, sending out query letters to see if publishing companies would even be interested, and then also getting letters back saying they're not.
No, thank you.
Yes. And so, and nonfiction works a little bit different than fiction, kind of in the reverse. You don't write the entire book necessarily first. You compile your research, and you have an outline and a good idea of what you want to do and what you want the outcome to be. But then you send all of that information to a publishing company.
Okay.
And then if they like the idea, then you start writing, actually putting everything together. So yes, Arcadia Publishing was interested, obviously, in Lost Farms. And so, then it just, they have certain expectations of what the book needs to cover, what it needs to look like. So then it was gathering photographs and doing my research. And honestly, gathering the photographs was probably one of the most difficult aspects of the book. Most of it had to be pre-1970s.
Okay.
So I was digging in attics and basements and through archives, and
I think I saw a lot from the Baldwin, was it the Baldwin Library?
Oh,
so they
yes.
must have been a treasure resource.
Oh, yes. If anybody has a moment to even just check the Baldwin Public Library out for their old photographs, there are hundreds of them. I did. I spent an entire afternoon going through, and then some. But yeah, a lot of the public libraries are actually really great resource for old photographs, and I didn't actually realize that when I started that libraries do keep, a lot of them keep pretty extensive collections, but they're not always very organized. So
I work with the Historical Society on scanning and digitizing their photos, so it's a long process when you have thousands and thousands of photos to catalog and scan. And
right, it's very time-consuming work. So yeah, and especially with the historical societies like libraries, it's usually all volunteer based, and so you kind of have to balance your time. And the Stillwater Public Library everything was very neatly categorized. I was very impressed.
They have the John Runk collection, which is amazing. I've seen what he did for his photography and his collection is just truly amazing.
Yeah. So during this whole writing process, I stumbled along a lot of different historically interesting aspects of the St. Croix River Valley. I think this area is just full of history. You could write 100 more books if you had the time. You could do that. So.
Yeah, and the thing is every little farm community, every little area has that same rich history. It's a matter of discovering it, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that appeals to me with doing stuff with history is you'll have little bits and pieces, and it's like a puzzle, putting all those bits and pieces together to make a bigger picture, and how it all interconnects and it's all interwoven. Lumber and farming and lumber and the different industries and how they interact with each other and cause and effect on each other. And
yeah, well, and that's actually, kind of going back to your previous question, one thing that I didn't realize, you grow up in the St. Croix River Valley and you're, taught this, local history in schools, and a lot of it focuses on the logging industry, which was huge in this area. But, there was actually a time, and I kind of go over that in my book, there was actually a time when the wheat industry surpassed economically the logging industry. So farming is huge in this area.
I think we were the largest, St. Croix County and possibly other surrounding counties, the largest producers of wheat in the nation. before it moved westward.
Yeah, yeah.
Got to
before the
remember
West
it.
took over.
Remember in the 1850s and possibly 1860s that when they said "Go west, young men," this was Hudson and it was west.
Yeah.
At one time, I believe St. Paul was considered too small to be our county seat, and that's how Stillwater became the county seat. And then when we created our western border, that's when that seat, Stillwater was no longer in Wisconsin,
Right.
so it moved to the Hudson area.
And I think that's really interesting because a lot of Minnesotans in the St. Croix River Valley, they like to claim, oh, well, we have, the first this, or Minnesota had the first that. And you're like, well, just hold on, because that used to actually
be St. Croix County.
St. Croix County, Wisconsin, if you...
From 1840s to 1848.
Yeah. So, I think Joseph Haskell was considered the first Minnesotan farmer. Just he actually grew and sold his crops. And Afton really likes that title, to hold that title. They're very proud of it, as they should be.
I guess they first in St. Croix County.
Yes, yeah, but it's like, well, that's kind of a gray area, because yes, the first in St. Croix County, which is now Wisconsin, our borders were very different back then. Yes.
Yeah, the western border was made by when we became a state, the western border was the St. Croix River. It was changed from the Mississippi, right?
That's
So there's that little wedge of land.
Yeah.
Moved from a county to a different state, or to a state. Which is, again, some of that interesting history that, it never would have occurred to me that the counties were formed before the states were formed.
Yeah, and it's, I guess another thing that I learned in my research too, and also, I kind of going back to Afton, that's on the front cover of my book, actually, is the berry farm. And I didn't know that area of Minnesota was so widely known for their berries and more unique crops, like tree farming and things like that. I had no idea.
Yeah, I think some of the earliest exports included cranberries, which came out of this area, maple syrup and cranberries, even before the wheat industry. I think Hudson, over where Burton Field is, somewhere in that general area, was a real low bog, and there used to be a cranberry bog right here in Hudson. So it's like I said, you go digging around in history, so you find amazing things.
Yes, you can.
And you never run out, because we're making new history every day, right?
Right. Okay.
So back to some of my questions here. What are some of your favorite memories about life on the farm? Is there anything in particular that you remember most about your farm?
I always remember playing in the barn with my cousins. We would play hide and seek between, the cows. We really weren't supposed to.
No.
And looking back, I understand why. If we were caught, we got in really big trouble. But yeah, we would just be running around the farm all day, just kind of, causing trouble and getting into the hay mow and climbing up on the haystacks. And, those just, being a kid on a farm is just...
Lots of room to grow and play.
Yeah, and I just think there's, that sense of freedom. You're out in the country, you just do whatever, you get all dirty, and nobody cares. And it was lots of good memories. So, and then also, a lot of our holidays were at the family farm, and so there's lots of good memories associated with growing up on a farm. And I think our farm, like many others, it is kind of that focal point, that center meeting place for your family. That's where everybody goes when they want to celebrate. That's where everybody goes if they're come on difficult times.
There's a reason they call them family farms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They are the heart of the family, or can be the heart of the family. A lot of hard work. You kind of lead to that in your book, talking about how much work it is to work on a farm, especially a small family farm.
Right.
And
Yeah, well, it's, back in the day when you would just have a really big family and that would be your laborers.
Workforce.
Yeah, yeah. But now it's like my aunt and uncle who both work full time and then also deal with, the daily operations of the farm. And it's, you're stretched pretty thin. It's a lot of hard work without, too much immediate reward. You're not getting, you're certainly not getting your promotions every year, and you're not getting, maybe not a steady paycheck. It, with the price of milk fluctuating and things like that, it seems like quite the roller coaster ride for the average farmer.
Yes,
So.
and hard works and very little vacation.
Right.
So another question is, did this book serve to bring awareness of the lost farms? You mentioned in the book that it's an inherited trade, that it goes from generation to generation, so that there's a lot of skill and knowledge that those farmers have, and that gets passed down from generation to generation. And what are, with doing the book, what are some of the problems with that, or the ability for that to happen still?
Sure. Well, one thing that I touch on is that the average age of a farmer is about 65. So
that's a pretty current figure, right?
Yeah. Yes. And when I was talking to a couple of families, they said, well, farming isn't really a lucrative career. And with college being more of an option, a lot of their children, they want to go off to college and do other things with their lives, and farming doesn't hold that much of an interest, and understandably so. It's a lot of work and you don't really make a lot of money. So, but with farming being, traditionally an inherited career, well, then who is going to take over the farm? If the kids go off and get, different career paths, and and so so we're seeing that a lot of those small farms are just, there's no one to take them over. No one wants the farm, so they sell it, or it just
fades away.
And so that's kind of what we're seeing with the barns kind of falling down, is that there's no animals in it. There's no one to, continue the farming trade. And as people get older, obviously farming is more difficult. So, they just kind of disappear. And that's one thing that I talked about with Donna Syme too. And one of the reasons why they decided to stop farming is they realized, their children were interested in doing other things. And So, we have to, hopefully at one point we can make local farming be more of a lucrative business for younger people, and kind of get them back interested in local farming and local agriculture.
Well, I know with the organic movement, there's much to be said for trying to grow your crops locally and not have to transport them all over the place. But the farmers markets and the organics and the CSAs, I think that might be an avenue where there might be some revival for those farms.
Yeah, I think it'll be, I don't think that it will ever be as it was before. No. I think that's gone. That is part of history now. But I do think that, yes, there's definitely different ways that we can revive local agriculture, and kind of bring an appreciation back to what it's like to grow and eat food locally. And that's a great preservation effort. A lot of those old barns are built to last.
Yes.
And they will, obviously, they've been around for, some of them, well over 100 years, and they're still standing strong. And there's also different preservation methods, like the Lewis McKay family, that decided to use theirs as a more of a historical landmark as a century farm. So that's definitely one way to preserve it. Otherwise, you do see kind of more of a trending movement where you take the barn down and, you know, restore the old barn wood for different home furnishings and things like that.
Yeah, and I know over my sister's garden in Willow River Tree Farm, they've taken an old barn that they moved into the place. So that old barn was taken apart piece by piece and reassembled, and some of that's going on, and it's good to see that happen. And I think there's also very popular to use the barns as a wedding venues too. So
yeah.
It's sad that family farms can't survive necessarily for a variety of reasons. It's not just generational lack of interest. There are many other factors, I think.
Oh, yes, yeah, and my book kind of goes into it a bit more deeply, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely you know, economy changes and
technology changes.
Technology, and there are so many different things that I was kind of going into a lot of my research hoping to peg down, like,
that's the thing that caused it. That's the magic bullet.
This is it. And that is not it. It's a very multifaceted problem. And I think that's why we're seeing so many farms fall apart, as, you know, maybe if it was one problem, you could more easily address it. But it's, there's lots of different things going on that, you know, no one farmer told me the exact same reason why he or she stopped farming. So.
Yep. Trying to find more questions here. So overall, what was your impression of this project and getting out and talking to the farmers, and not only your impression but their impressions? Like you kind of said that they vary from farmer to farmer, but was there any kind of overall theme or overall message?
Yeah, I think most people were very excited to tell me what it was like to be a farmer. I think most people were, you know, they could have sat down with me and talked for hours and hours about their experiences on a farm and what they had to do in these old, you know,
the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days, and telling me all sorts of stories, and I just.
You could do a whole book on it happened on the farm, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. And I think people were very excited that there was an interest in what their lives were like, and for me, I mean, I loved collecting these old stories, especially, you know, I want to hear as many as I can before those stories are gone. You know, there's no one left to tell them. Before they're lost. Yeah.
That's the whole idea, right?
Right, yeah. So, and it was truly an honor to be able to sit down with, you know, so retired farmers and share their stories, and I am very glad that I could cover such an important part of our past.
So. And you mentioned a little bit your road trip with your grandma. That must have been a fun experience.
Oh yes, yeah. My my grandma Gail and I just, you know, got in the car on a Saturday morning and just one of us was the driver and the other was the lookout.
No crop watching while you're driving, huh?
Right, yeah. So we would drive down the roads and he'd be like, oh, barn, 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 pull over. And yeah, we just stopped at as many places as we could and knocked on doors and dropped off business cards and
fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, so it was great just having my grandma come along too, because, you know, she can kind of like relate and carry on the conversation sometimes a bit better. You know, I'm kind of younger than a lot of the retired farmers, and so it was nice to have her along to kind of, you know, cushion the conversation. She knew the right questions to ask because she was very familiar with agriculture too, and it was great. I mean, mostly, you know, she did a lot of the talking and I was just out with my notebook scribbling as fast as I could.
A good interpreter.
Right. Yeah.
Generational interpretation.
Right.
So how did it feel to see your book on bookshelves of the store, or in the shelves of the bookstores?
I am still getting used to that. Like I said, it was a childhood dream, and so actually seeing my work on the shelf, I went into Barnes & Noble last week and saw it on the shelf, and
By the way, the Woodbury store is all sold out.
Oh yeah.
But luckily we have a nice bookstore here,
Oh yes.
right here in town, and that worked well.
Chapter 2 books is absolutely wonderful. They're the most helpful people. Brian and Sue, whenever I had a question, they were very supportive, and they know all the answers about books.
Just like hometown farms, hometown stores have a significant value too.
Right,
So,
yeah.
It's nice to have a nice local store. So tell us more about where else the book is available. So we've got the back, is it Chapter 2 books.
Chapter
I keep
2,
wanting to call it
yep.
back to 2.
So Chapter 2 books, the Stillwater Farm Store, the Osceola Federated Co-op. You'll see it in, the River Falls Drugstore.
Okay.
It's kind of scattered about right now, but you can also get it online through Arcadia Publishing and Amazon as well. And then, obviously, Barnes & Noble. So, and it should be in all local bookstores too. So,
Okay. And you are promoting this book, some of the ways that with Facebook, so tell people where to go.
yeah, I did start a Facebook page. It's called Relic Inc. And so I just share some of my other writing on there, as well as keep people updated on what's happening with my book, if it's in a new location, or if I'm having a book signing event. That's where I'll put it. So and anybody is welcome to follow me on there if they're interested in seeing any updates on my writing or my book.
Okay. I saw you recently did a book signing at, was it?
Oh, yes,
the Cheese Factory? Where was that?
the Ellsworth.
Cheese curds and books on farming. Yes. I mean, that must have been a fun Sunday afternoon.
Yes, I forgot.
Was it a Sunday or a weekend?
Yes, it was. It was actually the Saturday afternoon. Yes, the Ellsworth Creamery also has my books, and I think that's pretty fitting.
Don't forget the cheese curds, right?
Right. Yes, you could go in for some cheese curds and then
come
also
out with a book. I mean,
so
that'd be great.
And it was great to be at that event on Saturday and be able to share my work. There's obviously a lot of local farmers and people that stop by.
Yeah, the Cheese Factory is a great place to hang out, right?
Yeah, can't go wrong there.
So I guess that about wraps it up, unless you have some other topics you want to talk about, or.
No, I think that we pretty well covered it. If anybody wanted to find out more information about my book, it's obviously it's on my Facebook page, Relic Inc., but Arcadia Publishing, it's just arcadiapublishing.com. They also have information on a little bit more information on my book and also about myself. So
okay,
you can check that out.
Your bio ad.
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you, Tina, for talking to us, and thank you, everyone, for joining us for Western Wisconsin Journal. And I'm Jackie Bradham from the St. Croix County Historical Society, and Tina Boucher, our new author.
Thank you.
Thank you.